Okay,
right?
so the first bucket of
Yeah,
vaccine challenges are these traditional actions against state law, and you include local
right.
and
So all this police
school
power,
district
right?
mandates in those challenges as well. And you think that probably at the apex, at some point, the issue is that you're looking, that a lot of people are looking to be decided, is whether Jacobson is going to be affirmed, whether there are any nuances to it, whether it was
Right,
limited to something more severe like smallpox, or
right,
whether chicken pox also falls under the same rule.
right.
Okay, so that's the first
That's
bucket. What's the next bucket, the next classification of these current challenges to the vaccine mandates?
well, recently what you've had is the federal government getting involved in this. Historically, the federal government has not been involved in vaccine mandates. There was, language from 100 years ago in some Louisiana case saying it's the province of the state governments. So what you have now is, what happened is Biden went to a bunch of agencies, says, figure out how we can impose a federal mandate, even though he said that he wasn't going to, because, and maybe he was justified in doing it. Maybe he wasn't. Not what we're here to discuss. We're not playing politics. But he sent this memo out, I think, perhaps metaphorically, to all the different agencies. He says, come up with rational justifications for vaccine mandates. And so far as I can tell, they came up with 3 agencies raised their hands. OSHA, which governs workplaces, CMS, Medicare, which governs hospitalizations. And the third is the federal government's contracting with entities who get money from the government to do things. So contractors. So those are the 3 different, 2 agencies and 1 area of federal action that the Biden administration has says, well, look, that gives us the authority to impose a vaccine mandate. So what has happened in the last, since those laws or regulations have been placed, is you've had litigation around the country challenging the ability of the federal government to impose a vaccine mandate, because basically vaccine mandates have been historically the province of the state governments under the police power. And I think you mentioned the point earlier at some point that this isn't even the federal, this is not Congress. This is essentially administrative action, right? And that raises a whole host of problems, especially in the context of the Supreme Court. And what I think is going to be the continued attack on the administrative state, which we see in other areas, like with the doctrine, which I'm sure you're familiar with, Chevron deference to administrative agencies. So, and some of the Supreme Court judges, I think, especially the 3 on the hard right, they've been talking about getting rid of them, Thomas has been talking about getting rid of the administrative state and Chevron for a long time. So, and they're now limiting it. And that is, I think, directly related, because it's just a backlash against the administrative state. And this would be just another, if not super example, of the federal administrative state interfering in people's lives, or so the argument is going to be made.
Okay, so this second bucket is challenging vaccine mandates that are coming down from the federal government.
Right.
And you broke that into agencies and then also federal contractors.
Right.
And it seems like probably the lead arguments in those challenges are going to be kind of procedural, constitutional, structural type of arguments. Whereas the
10th Amendment, powers reserved to the state.
Yeah.
That's a 10th Amendment, isn't it, I think?
Yeah, that's a 10th Amendment.
Yeah,
and then so these are going to be more procedural type of challenges. We're, maybe lurking in the background, there's still the Jacobson type of question, but that's a police power question, which is
right.
not among the federal powers. You'd have to, I think the government is going to have to find some sort of constitutional hook that authorizes it to make these challenges. And I think maybe lurking in the background, maybe Chief Justice Roberts' opinion in the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act case, which held that the Commerce Clause does not support the imposition of the mandate to buy health insurance. Instead, it was upheld as a tax. So if there's not authority to authorizing the federal government to impose a requirement to private individuals to buy health care, I'm not sure that there's a majority on that court, particularly now, who's going to buy that there is a federal authorization to require citizens to accept a jab of a private medical product.
Right. Well, I think you're right. I think they have a hard time finding a constitutional justification. I think what the issue is going to be is more statutory. So in the OSHA case, I think there's some test. The test is whether there's an emergency and whether they have the power under the statute. So that's an area where, the Jacobson litigation, I think, is tough. But under the statute, in terms of the OSHA statute, it's really not clear. I mean, how long is this emergency going to last? It's going to be 10 years? I mean, now we're the Omicron, then we're going to be the Domicron, and then how long do you have this power, right? So I think there's probably the best argument to be made against that is the statutory argument that it exceeds the authority of the federal government under the OSHA laws to mandate something like that. Because, I mean, I agree with you. I think the constitutional question, I'm not sure what it is, but if there is one, it's a loser.